Howdy, everybody. Wow, that was super white of me. Howdy.
Yeah.
Howdy, folks. How's it going? Welcome to the show. It's Chase and Myles, and we are
At the Lucky Duck.
Woo.
Yay. Today we have the pleasure of speaking with the fabulous Paula Herrera. And I know before we talked about the pronunciation of your last name, can you please say it in the least white way?
Herrera.
There you go.
Ooh, nice.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
That was great.
Wow.
Accent.
How are you? How's it
I'm
going?
good. I'm good.
Yeah, it's been a minute since we last saw each other.
Yeah, that's quarantine for you.
Yeah, COVID has really made having friends a lot more work than it used to be. Because it's like everybody now just, first of all, if you were like an introvert that loves staying inside, not a big deal for you.
Yeah, I've been mostly fine.
Yeah.
But whenever I do go out and have to talk to people, like strangers specifically, I'm like, hi.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's socially
This is
awkward
what
now.
I need. Yeah, it's so weird.
I
Yeah.
haven't done this in so long.
Yeah.
This feels
I,
so
I get that
right.
way because you worked from home before, right?
Yeah, yeah.
I work from home as well. And so like a week will go by and I'll go outside and I'm like, this is what it's like.
Yeah. But even working from home, I was always on the phone talking to somebody.
Yeah.
And since COVID started, I've been furloughed. So I'm like, I've got nobody to talk to. I'm just home alone
Your cats.
This
with
is
my
fine.
cats. Yeah, and Jonathan. But
Yeah.
So how far into the pandemic did your job last until you had to be furloughed?
end of April.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
trying to hold out a little bit, and then it was like, yeah, this
Yeah.
shit's real.
Well, so in my business, so we only make money if our clients have their events. All the events got canceled.
Yeah. So tell
And
everybody
that
what
was-
what you officially do.
I am a certified meeting professional.
Oh snap!
Yeah,
So
I help
what
companies.
what does that mean?
So I help companies plan their trade shows, conferences, incentive sales trips, internationally, domestically, all of that.
I knew there was someone
Yeah.
who did that.
Yeah,
I was like,
that's me.
it happens, but yeah, okay.
Yeah,
Cool.
that's me. That's what I do. Can't do that right now.
Yeah.
So it's kind of just been like, well, we'll see what happens.
Did you think, like, how early on did you think you would get furloughed before it happened?
It kind of went pretty quickly.
Yeah.
As soon as all the restrictions started happening, all the travel restrictions happening, that's when our clients started calling us to cancel.
Yeah.
And
that
then
sucks.
they all kind of canceled within the same week. And then I think by the end of the week was where like all travel had stopped pretty much,
Yeah.
except for like essential travel.
So when Trump was
Mm-hmm.
like getting on the news, he was like, "We're banning flights from Europe and China." That was like,
Mm-hmm.
"Oh shit, this is shit's happening." I remember that moment. I was sitting down here playing PlayStation with this guy, and he's like, "Hey, I think Trump's coming on to
Yeah.
talk," and then we
When I lived in
paused
Boston.
and we're just watching it on our phones, and he's saying it, and we're like, "Holy fuck, this is unbelievable! Like
Yeah.
this hasn't happened since World War II."
Yep.
Like, and it was the first real indication that shit was about to hit the fan.
Yeah, and my boss is actually supposed to be on a flight to France when that announcement got made, but luckily she had canceled like 2 days before.
Yeah.
Or else she would have gotten stuck there and been like, how do I get home?
I knew people who were mid-flight over the Atlantic going to Ireland
Oh, no.
when the announcement
Yeah.
was made, and we were freaking out. We're like, "Are they going to be able to come home? Like, what's?" What? And she, like, yeah, you're allowed to fly back home if you're a United States
Yeah.
citizen, but
Well, that was like in April, was it? When they announced that?
March, I think.
March.
Yeah.
Because I know I was, yeah, that's right. Because I was also supposed to go to Spain the last week of March, and I actually was able to get a refund.
Yeah, it was March because it was mid-March. Because I remember we
Yeah.
had, Chase, we had actually had dinner the night before
Oh,
Denver announced everything was going to be closed.
Sushi Den.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Until further notice.
It was
wow.
this eerie, weird feeling. Like we were there, and it was like I feel like this.
Everybody was talking about it.
Everybody was
at all the
talking about it,
tables.
and also
Yeah.
it was kind of refreshing because it was the first time I had gone out to eat in a couple weeks, and I was like, "This is a good sign. People are still going out. People are still having dinner. Maybe this isn't going to be as bad as it was." And then
then
literally
the next day,
yeah,
they were
next
like,
day.
"Nope, everything's closed
Yeah.
until we figure out what's going on."
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, in Boston, they were like, "Don't go outside."
Yeah. Don't even look at anybody. Don't even
In
talk to
New
me.
York, they were like, "Okay, everyone should be in the hospital right now."
Yeah.
God, if you are a hypochondriac
Oh my
before, you must be going absolutely
Yeah.
insane.
How many times did you guys wake up in the morning and you were like, "I think I have COVID"?
Hello,
Ready.
raspy voice.
Well, I actually got really sick in like the beginning of March.
Yeah.
And I thought it was just a really, really bad cold. But looking back, I'm like, oh no, what if it was COVID?
Yeah.
Who could have got,
Yeah.
who could have gotten sick?
Have you ever been tested?
No.
Miles, have you ever been
home.
tested?
No, not tested for antibodies or
No, because when I did get
virus.
sick, and it was still, pretty close to that time that I had been sick, the tests were only available to people who had symptoms currently and had been in contact with like a positive case.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And since then I've just been home and haven't really been interacting with anybody, so I haven't gotten tested.
Yeah. That was like
Yeah.
a big thing kind of everywhere. Like my
Mhm.
coworker who lived near Tampa, like Bradenton area, where they had, that was like in Florida, that was like one of the
Mhm.
outbreak areas.
Yeah, yeah.
And he and his 2 daughters got really, really sick. Who knows what it actually was, but he literally couldn't like get tested. Like he tried, and
Yeah,
because he didn't know if he was around anyone who had it, who had a positive test, they wouldn't test him. So it
Yeah.
was like, oh well. And then he just kept his
Yeah.
kids away from his family.
Yeah.
Our brother got COVID, got tested, and turns out it was COVID. But the way it happened was so strange, and he got really sick. He lives in Florida, but like,
Ugh.
I say that like, and it's like, oh yeah, that makes sense. He lives in Florida. But like, he got tested. They called him and were like, you don't have COVID. He's like, okay, that's weird, because his doctor was saying like, if you are sick right now, it's most likely COVID, because there's literally nothing else
Yeah.
going on.
Yeah.
That was
around.
all, and he had all like the most common symptoms.
Yeah.
And like nothing that was out of the ordinary. Yeah.
And so he, when you get tested, you put in your email and stuff, and then they will email you the results. And when he opened up his email, it was like positive, and he was like, "What the fuck?"
Yeah.
Like he's
Yeah.
like,
Did they mess up? Or?
Yeah,
somebody
up.
messed up.
no.
Yeah. And so I think
That's
is
why Florida's so
that
bad.
is an analogy for what is happening. Like, there's so much misinformation.
Yeah.
Like, we found out that President Trump downplayed.
Yeah.
He knew how dangerous this thing was, and he still made us feel like it wasn't a
Everything's
big
gonna be
deal.
fine.
It was gonna
Yeah.
go
It is
away.
what it is.
Yeah.
And then we find out that the CDC was saying that masks don't matter, and of course they fucking matter, and you should be wearing a mask
It
if
didn't
you're
make
outside.
sense to begin with. I was like,
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm not a scientist, so I was like,
But
whatever.
even people in Asia have forever.
Mm-hmm.
They just wear masks out of courtey because they know it works.
Right.
Yeah. It's pretty staggering.
Well, this is America, so like
Yeah.
we
I
know,
know.
better.
Yeah, it's freedom. Okay, I ain't gonna wear a mask. God damn it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's so much confusion, so much misinformation. It's going to be annoying and also fascinating. Like years from now, seeing all the documentaries and discoveries and afterwards that come out talking about where we fucked up, what we should have done, like Monday morning quarterbacking almost. But it's also going to be annoying because like I'm sick of fucking, and I am talking about COVID, but like it's such a debilitating thing that has wrecked our country. I just want to move on and talk about something else and get this thing behind our backs.
Yeah.
But it's foolish. We need to learn from our mistakes. We need to become better.
And the hard part is we're not really going to know the true numbers until after we're out of this. Because
Yeah.
right now it's all in,
and we may
as it's
never even
happening.
know.
We may not know.
Like we're
because of
never
all the
going to know
testing
how many people actually
that
died in
can
China.
happen.
That shit's out the window. Like
Well,
no fucking way.
Yeah. Even looking like in Italy, their death rate is so much higher than like most of the rest of the world. And maybe that could be because that was kind of the start of it and their doctors didn't know how to treat it yet. But it also could just be they couldn't test people fast enough. And so like we won't ever know how many people had it there. Which
Yeah.
like maybe
Yeah.
it probably is helpful for some statistics and research and stuff. But in the end, it's like what's more important is that we get rid of it and people don't die. So
I wish that it was so simple, because there was a lot of like what brought a lot of pandemonia or panic. That's the same thing. It was like oh, you can get it and not show symptoms, and then you can give it to other people, and certain people die because we have no idea why. Oh, we think it may be because of obesity. We may think it's because you have an underlying heart disease, but healthy people are dying too, and everybody's like, we have no idea. Like, it's an invisible enemy that is kind of random, and who it picks to victimize the worst.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping that some course down the line that they can be like, oh, we've identified a gene that, like, when it's expressed, you will most likely die from COVID or something like that.
Yeah.
Some kind of underlining reasoning to all the madness that we've experienced in the last 6 coming on 7 months. But yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the good thing now too, like I just saw a bit ago something pop up on my phone saying that doctors are getting a lot more practice now, and so like that is not only because like more young people are getting it now, but the death rate is going down also because the treatment's getting better.
Yeah.
Which I know they said was like important in the beginning too, and it's weird to like look back at how extreme things were to begin with, and then how what I would say like relaxed we are with this, like having way more cases now. Like I remember when there was like 2 cases in the US and we were like, oh my God, shut it all down.
Yeah.
And then there was like 10 and then 20, you know, and it grew exponentially from there. Now there's way more than that. And I think we're a lot more relaxed than we were to begin with. But I think it's because we know a lot more.
Yeah, and we've just been going through it for such a longer time now that it's the new norm, as they like to say.
And people are wearing masks now, so.
So what's the new norm for you? What's next for your job search?
Tech.
Nice.
So in my job search, there's nothing in meetings or events because you can't have meetings or events right now.
Yeah.
But I have seen a lot of tech companies continuously looking for new people. So I think it would be cool to maybe go into like tech, but specifically for meeting industries. There's a lot of out there, and even companies that I've used in the past. So I think that'd be a cool way to kind of stay within my industry in a way, but in a different, capacity.
And what a great city to live in too for that, because tech is it has been in the last few years moving to Denver as real estate and other things happening in Silicon Valley. It's I heard that Pinterest is like getting out of their lease, their offices in San Francisco. I think it was like $80 million like lease buyout.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm sure it's a multi-year
and
lease.
Twitter's letting their employees work from home forever.
Ever. Yeah.
Yep.
That's crazy.
I think Facebook said they were going to do that to a certain capacity as well. But
it makes sense though.
It's probably a little like early for Twitter to have said that, I think. I don't know if I would do that if I was running Twitter. Yeah.
Which is
because like I have coworkers who actually like can work from home but go into the office, and they tell like that's their explanation is I can't work at home. I'm an office worker. And I completely
synergy.
Understand that.
Yeah, there's synergy in working in an office with other people, being able to walk down the hall to the next office and be like, hey, I need to do this and that. What do you think about the bouncing off ideas? There's a competitive thing that happens in the office that drives people to work harder or be more productive, or all these things that make the company more money.
I worked from home for six almost 7 years.
Nice.
And so at the beginning of the pandemic, when all these people were having to work from home for the first time, they were asking me like, how do you do this? What do I need to do? And I was like, okay, here's what I do. This might help you.
Welcome to the jungle.
Yeah, it's not easy. It was really hard the first couple of years I was doing it too, because it's so easy to get distracted.
Yeah,
once you get the hang of it. But it is not for everybody.
It also gets a little bit lonely from time to time.
Oh, yeah.
But, I mean, you deal with it just like anything else.
Yeah.
I felt the same way at the start of it. Is like, nothing changed for me.
Exactly.
I'm already home. I was lucky. Like, it didn't affect my job that much.
Yeah.
But, it was like Sarah was an optometrist. So, she couldn't work. So she was just home all the time. And I was like, oh, this is fun. I liked her being home. A lot of people say they don't like their spouse being home, but
I liked having Jonathan home.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Good
nice.
time.
It's nice to have the company and not just be me and my cats.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So Oh, excuse me. We heard that you were born in Venezuela.
I was.
Nice. And
What
one
age?
of
What age did you leave?
I moved here when I was 6 to
Nice.
Florida.
Okay.
so it's safe to say you have dual
1993.
citizenship.
I do, although the Venezuelan citizenship is a little weird because my passport from Venezuela has expired. I never renewed it. And now that I am over 18, I don't have like the official like government ID. And the only way to get it is to go back to Venezuela and get it.
Yeah.
So I don't really have proof of my Venezuelan citizenship. Other
You
than, like
weren't
my
born
birth,
there.
yeah, just my birth certificate. I do have
go.
that.
Okay, you were born there.
Yeah.
You just weren't a citizen.
I do have my birth certificate, but I have no, stake in the country anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is it unsafe to go back as as someone like would it be worse for you or me to go there? Would it be worse for you to go there than for me? Because I was born here.
It depends. So since you were born here, you could go there. If anything happened, the U.S. government could get you out. You know, you'd go to the embassy and they would pull you out or do whatever they could. Since I was born there, the Venezuelan law supersedes the American law. So if they say you can't leave the country, the U.S. can't do anything, even though I'm a U.S. citizen.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. It was a little worse. So, I moved here when I was 6, and in the summers, my brother, me, my cousins, we would go back and spend the summers with my grandparents. And that was fine up to a point when it did get too dangerous to travel. And so my grandparents would come here, and at a certain point, it was like, you cannot go back to Venezuela until you're 18, because if you're a child, they might not let you leave the country because they think you belong to the country.
Well, also there was a mass. I heard there was a mass exodus.
Yeah,
To leave the country, and so they were afraid that there wouldn't be anybody left.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's I mean, we moved in 1999 to the US, and that was kind of like at the beginnings. It was right after Chavez had gotten elected. So it wasn't very difficult for us to move here legally, get a residency and everything. And it did still take So I moved here in 1999. I did not get my U.S. citizenship until 2010, 2011. So it took over 10 years to do that, just because the process is really difficult.
Damn. So literally from start to finish, it was 10 years.
Yeah, over 10 years, yeah. But moving here wasn't a problem. Once everybody did start coming in like the massive waves, it did get a lot harder. You had to have a specific reason, like, you were getting threatened by somebody or the government and needed political asylum. And so it did get a lot harder.
Who was it? Was it Chavez that put that into place of making it harder to leave Venezuela?
I'm not sure. I think it was more of also within the U.S., just like the immigration laws, who could come into the country legally.
Like Cuba's relationship.
Yeah.
So Chavez, good or bad?
Bad.
Bad.
Very bad.
Okay.
Very, very bad.
and the revolution, bad.
Very bad.
So who was the president before that? Do you know?
No. I was.
And so
really
why do you have a bad impression of it?
Well, just everything. So the country, we used to be very wealthy, very prosperous.
Because of oil, right?
Yeah, oil, a lot of oil. There was a lot of poverty. Venezuela has one of the largest, I think they call them like shanty towns, slum towns. Pitare, it's huge. You can look at pictures and it looks crazy.
What is it called?
Pitare.
Yeah,
Itade?
Look up Caracas.
Oh, yeah.
Pitare. It looks crazy. You did have a lot of poverty, and Chavez, I don't really know all the details 'cause I was so young when it happened, and it's just from what I've heard since then. Just he appealed to them, promising them all these things, which the rhetoric sounds great. People should not have to live in poverty, especially in a country that's so prosperous and has such great things. However, that did not happen. The middle class got really, really hurt. And just, that's why everybody left. It got really dangerous. Crime went up. It was pretty bad.
Yeah,
this
so
this is crazy.
Right?
It's like this, right?
Yeah.
That's what you're talking about?
Yeah.
Wow.
it's like shacks on top of shacks on top of shacks. It
Yeah.
looks almost like a fractal image where it just goes on forever.
Yeah, and they're all
Yeah.
built with like cardboard, like
Mm-hmm.
metal sheeting,
Okay.
things like that.
Yeah.
I heard that so there was a big divide in class, and I heard a lot of Venezuela was very rich and swanky, like a lot of like, you know, you could get, there's like plastic surgery everywhere, and like,
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Venezuelans have the best fake boobs because of the like it's not uncommon. So like in Latin culture, instead of like your sweet 16, you celebrate like your 15th year, your quinceañera, and like it's not uncommon for a 15-year-old girl as her like 15-year-old like birthday present to get like new boobs.
Really?
Yeah.
What?
Nice.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
interesting.
A lot of
Happy
great
birthday to me.
fake boobs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah.
That's strangely one thing I heard. It was like when I was doing a little bit of reading on it, it was like things were really good. And even like shortly after, because Chavez staged a coup, didn't make it, and then like you were saying, was appealing to is a populist candidate, right? So
And
he was,
that's how he got
yeah,
elected.
and then didn't necessarily make any of those changes, and the same economic structure was kind of carried out through the first like half decade of his presidency, which is it's so strange because when he did get elected and assumed power, many, including I think the U.S., praised the democratic takeover of what he stood for.
Yeah, I mean, if you, I've like seen clips of him like talking from like really early on, and like the rhetoric sounds great. It's just the practice, and a lot of that has to do not just with like the democratic socialist kind of ideal he was preaching, but just the deep corruption in the country. A lot of like mishandling of funds, a lot of really shady deals going on. They like, it's kind of well known that they just allow the drug traffickers to just do whatever they want.
Oh yeah.
And I heard that
know
was one of the things, and it's so weird because let me circle back. One of the things he stood for was anti-corruption. So he said that the current establishment is corrupt. We need to, can I say, drain the swamp?
So my mom, who was obviously in Venezuela when all of this happened, has said that a lot of the way Trump talks about government, a lot of the ways he campaigns, reminds her a lot of how Chavez campaigned.
Yeah.
Yeah, because Trump did the same thing, right? He went to all these blue-collar states and preached as a populist candidate and said, I'm going to work for you, the middle class, to bring the middle class back up to power, and I'm going to pretty much take out corruption in Washington. And we saw just the same fucking regime happen for another 4 years.
Yeah. I also heard that Hitler was that way too.
Yeah. Crazy analogy or comparison.
Yeah. And, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, so Chavez gets into power and kind of just keeps doing the same thing, and then something crazy happens, and he starts actually doing some of these like socialistic things. Like he starts nationalizing businesses, right? He starts taking over steel, cement, and a lot of these private businesses. I mean, even the cell tower, which was operated by Verizon, they booted Verizon out and made it a nationalist state-run cell service. Even the oil industry, the oil company, and I think that's ultimately what not collapsed the economy, but started the collapse, which was nationalizing the oil company, firing almost 80% of the staff. So now you have like kicked out a majority of your talent essentially, and then now it's being run by subpar talent and by corruption, and oil at the same time. Oil prices are crashing, and so by not privatizing, by making all these businesses a state-run business, they are now almost poorly managing all of these businesses into the ground, and now fully relying on one export as your main like commodity, which is oil, and it crashes.
Yeah.
And now you're kind of, the whole country is kind of fucked, right? Is
Yep.
that a good
Yeah.
explanation
Yeah,
of how
that's pretty
things?
Would you say that the like oil is kind of the root of the evil here with Venezuela? Like,
I think oil's
if-
the root of the evil everywhere.
yeah, everywhere, right? But in Venezuela, if they had never found the oil deposits, like back in 19 whatever it was, do you think they would be better off now if they just never had that?
I don't know, because the oil is what allowed the country to prosper in the first place.
Right, but
But
there's
it-
other
so I don't-
countries
mhm.
in South America that I don't know if I'd say they're prospering, but
Right,
like
right,
they
right.
don't have 1,000% inflation each year. You know what I mean?
It's
I
yeah,
think
yeah.
it's the corruption.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that
Mhm.
the corruption has a lot to do with it. Mhm.
Because there was a certain point when oil actually came back up to about $100 a barrel, and things should have gone back to not normal where it used to be, but it should have somewhat normalized, but it wasn't, and they weren't seeing the same revenue.
Mhm.
And so the popular opinion is that they were not embezzling, they were laundering money. Like, they caught people in the United States, Venezuelan state people, with hundreds of millions of dollars in bank accounts here, going, where did you get all this money from? It should be in Venezuela.
Oh,
But
Nice.
you know where a bunch of rich Venezuelans who are tied to the government live? In Miami,
Ooh.
in Fort Lauderdale.
Nice. I used to
Yeah.
live there.
Yeah,
didn't
that's
know
where I
any
grew up in South
Venezuelans.
Florida. A lot of Venezuelans in South Florida.
Uh-huh.
A lot of them were people who left, like my family did. A lot of them are rich Venezuelans tied to the government, but they're not living in Venezuela
Yeah.
because it's dangerous and
Yeah.
it sucks.
Yeah.
So all the money that should have
Yeah.
been funneling back into the government to fund these socialistic programs is now being funneled outside of the country to corrupt politicians, and leaving everybody to pretty much starve. Like, I heard, and I'm sure you have a bunch of stories about this, but like, if you wanted to get health care, you had to bring gloves, all the PPE stuff to the hospital in order to receive treatment, because they just don't have those supplies.
I don't know. I haven't looked at what that's been like with the pandemic, just because it's frankly too depressing, and I don't want to.
Yeah.
There's too much other depressing things happening, but it's pretty bad. They don't have a lot of resources. I've seen pictures of the nurseries at hospitals with babies in cardboard boxes because that's all they have.
Wow.
It's so sad.
It's really, really bad. Yeah.
Yeah, it's an interesting, like, some of these socialistic things sound nice on paper, but if they don't operate in smaller communities and with non-corrupt governments, they just don't work. Like, for instance, fixed pricing on certain things like pharmaceuticals and like food. That's what Venezuela did. They set the price of, like, let's just say an apple. Well, now
If you can find an apple.
if you can
go
find
to
an
the
apple,
grocery
exactly. So
store.
that's the point. Is either they're importing it or making themselves, and there was no competition because you could only sell it at a certain price. So there was less surplus in the market, less apples to go around. And then what happened is they, because of that, it created a black market for apples. So if you wanted an apple, you probably can't get it from the government because there's not a lot to go around. So the only way to get an apple now is to pay double or triple the price down the street
in U.S. dollars.
in U.S. dollars
Yep.
in the back alley of some shady
Yep.
guy's house, and it created this just crazy divide in the market versus black market.
Yeah, because when you go into the grocery store, it was at a certain point. I don't know if it's still like this right now, but a couple years ago it was, where you could only go to the grocery store on the date that day of the week that corresponded with the last 4 digits or whatever of your government ID number.
Wow.
So you can only go
Jeez.
grocery shopping once a week.
Mm-hmm.
And you would go, and it's whatever you could find. All they might have is like cooking oil and rice. So you
And
buy
if you
cooking
could
oil and rice.
afford it.
And because people are like, well, I don't know when I'm going to see rice again. I don't know when I'm going to see oil again. I'm going to buy as much as I can. And so that led to a lot of hoarding
So
because people had no other choice.
if things are so like just out of stock or so expensive, how do people actually live right now?
The way my family was living, like my grandparents, they were elderly. We didn't want them having to travel to go to the grocery store by themselves. We would send them food.
Yeah. Okay. So it's a
Boxes
lot
of
of
food.
people
Yeah.
like sending their family money from
Yeah.
other countries.
Yeah, and luckily they did live in a relatively like safe neighborhood, and they set up like their own little kind of like grocery store that was a little safer.
Oh,
They
that's
had
cool.
Yeah, but they were very lucky because a lot of people, it was just whatever you could find at the store, and if you leave the grocery store and somebody robs you and steals all your food, you can't buy more food until
Yeah.
the week after.
When you say like using US dollars, is that because the inflation of so like the black market wants US dollars, not
Because they can actually buy stuff with U.S. dollars.
Okay, yeah.
So, again, another couple of years ago, I had relatives in Venezuela. I think it was like 3 or 4 dudes broke into their homes, tied everybody up,
Oh my
beat
god.
up like a relative.
your relatives?
Yeah, my relatives.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, tied them up, robbed them at knife point, and they had like, pipes and stuff. Left the computers, left the TVs, stole all the food and all their U.S. dollars.
Wow.
Because that's what's worth the
That's
most.
That's what they wanted was food
Isn't that crazy?
and money that they could actually use.
yeah.
So I looked
Yeah.
this up, and I'm sure these figures changed based on who is reporting them, like if it's the government, the official government, or some outside sources. But in 2018, the inflation rate that year was 130,000%.
Yeah.
In 2019, it was
If you were,
10,000.
if you were like having to buy something with the like Venezuelan currency that you would have to take like a duffel bag full of cash.
That's what I
Wow.
heard. People were carrying around sacks of money.
Mm-hmm.
So when you
How
see the
crazy is
pictures of
that?
the money on the ground, it's just because people don't care. It's like a penny
it's
or something.
worthless.
And how crazy does that look and unsafe when you're carrying around that much money in a sack?
Mhm.
Yeah.
I just can't. And I can't remember the name of the city, but I was reading how bad the violence is there. Like it's one of the most violent places.
That's why
in the
we
world.
stopped going.
Yeah.
My brother and I mean, my brother did go back when he was in high school, but because he was born in the U.S. So if anything happened,
Oh,
he would
that's
have no problem
yeah.
leaving. I have not been back since I was maybe like 10.
Yeah.
It's the violence is
So how
horrible.
how many relatives do you have still there?
I've got on my dad's side 0. My dad's actually originally from Colombia. He did move to Venezuela when he was a child, and my grandparents built a beautiful house. And my dad, me, my mom, my brother, we moved to the U.S. in 1999. My dad's sister had already moved here with her family. My other uncle moved to Australia a few years ago because they allowed him to, get residency and everything. And my other uncle, he moved to Colombia a couple years ago, back to Colombia with his wife. And my grandparents, just this winter, came here to visit for the holidays and went back to Colombia and have not come back to Venezuela and probably will never be able to go back to their home, all their possessions, everything.
Oh my god.
Wow.
Mhm.
Is that because of the danger?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's they're very elderly. My grandmother's 94.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Wow.
We thought she was 90
Congrats.
until this year when we found out she was actually 94.
Girls always be lying about their age.
They can't drive anymore.
Yeah.
They're alone in this home. If somebody comes in,
Mhm.
they can't defend themselves.
Yeah.
They had a housekeeper that would come in, but even for her to travel there was kind of dangerous. So
I heard there's a little bit of drug violence in Colombia too, but it's
Yeah.
nothing near
no.
the violence in Venezuela.
There is not in Bogota and the city where they are at.
Okay.
At least not that I'm aware of.
Mm.
But it is a problem there as well. But in Venezuela, it's just everywhere.
Yeah.
Everywhere. Because people are desperate. They're so
Sure.
they're breaking into homes to steal food.
Yeah.
It's
Not TVs.
not TVs. No, they don't. They want food. They're trying to survive.
So while we have kids in their 20s running around stealing Nikes, looting in the riots.
Yeah.
We have people just trying to get food.
Yep.
In other places. That's crazy.
Yeah.
It's interesting that you said that your parents moved from Colombia. You said that right?
My grandparents.
Grandparents
And
moved.
my dad and his siblings when he was a kid.
I heard that when oil was really, because Venezuela used to be the most poor country before the oil reserves became a thing, and then it became one of the most wealthiest countries in the world, per capita. And then I think about approximately like 3 million Colombians moved there because it was such an exciting opportunity to be a part of such great wealth, such great prospering economies and growth. So I'm wondering if that was one of the reasons what brought your family there.
I'm not sure exactly as far as that goes. I know it was because my grandfather worked for IBM.
Oh, wow.
And he got a job at IBM in Caracas, and that's why they moved.
Is IBM still in Caracas?
I have no idea. I just remember driving through I remember we would drive by and they'd be like, "Oh, that's the building where he used to work," and there was a giant clock on the building.
Do you remember what he did?
Cool.
No.
Yeah.
I can ask him, but
Well,
I don't know.
Interesting talking about like the oil boom and Colombians moving there. When I looked up the like ethnicity in Venezuela, and it's 44% European.
Yeah.
Because a lot of European people moved there.
So the neighborhood I grew up in, a lot of Germans, a lot of French. So when I lived in Venezuela, I went to a French school. It was a school meant for like the children of diplomats, but anybody could go to this school. It was a private school because a lot of the schools there were, and they taught in like the French kind of like school kind of system and like the techniques of like, but they had a special program for like those kids of like the diplomats or like actual French people. And my grandmother was really good friends with the director of the school. So I got to go in. My brother did too.
Nice.
And so I was in that special program. So I actually like went to school in like French. And I spoke French, was my second language.
What?
Yeah.
You still speak French?
No, I forgot it.
Oh, wow.
Because when you're 6 and you have nobody to
Yeah.
talk to in the U.S. in French, you forget French.
Yes.
Yeah. So English is actually my third language, but
Yeah.
I don't really know
Did you just
French
learn it
anymore.
because you had to for school?
Yeah, they taught in French. I used to like come home and like sing little songs in French and do my little computer
Wow,
games
that's
in
crazy.
French. Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, I guess it was like when you were, well, no, you would have like known how to speak.
I knew Spanish.
Yeah.
My brother had a tough time because when he started speaking or when he started going to school in French, he was also really, really young. So he was like still learning Spanish. Then he was learning French. Then they moved him to the U.S. So he's got to like learn how to speak English.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he
That's
had a
crazy.
tough time with it.
Wait, so do you have more than one brother?
No, just my brother.
Okay, so, but you said he was born in the U.S.?
He was.
Because your parents visited?
Yes.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, they were visiting family. I had family here already for a while. My mom actually grew up because of my grandfather's job. She grew up moving in between Venezuela, Miami, and New Orleans.
Oh, that's cool.
And so we had family here. They were visiting. My brother was born here.
Did they purposely birth him here, or did it just happen that way?
I think I don't know. I have no idea.
It's kind of a blessing
Yeah.
now, right?
Yeah.
So that's good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's crazy.
Do you I actually wanted to ask you this like the first question, but who's the president of Venezuela?
Maduro.
And that's who you believe is the president?
No.
Okay.
That's who they think is the
Okay,
president.
yeah. Who do
Well,
you think is the president?
Trump doesn't think that he's the president.
No.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
So what's his name?
I can never pronounce it.
Is
Yeah,
it
me
Juan
Guaido.
Guaido?
Yeah, Guaido. Yeah.
Guaido? Okay.
Yes, that's.
So is there like anyone else who thinks they're the president too?
I think there's a few countries that do recognize him
Okay.
as the
Yeah.
president.
Mhm.
But it's
They're mostly conservative countries.
It's-
When he came on and announced that he was swearing himself in,
Oh, because
everybody
he's
jumped on.
because
Yeah.
he's not socialist.
No,
or-
he's more right wing,
Okay.
conservative. Yeah.
And Maduro was like Chavez's
Yeah,
predecessor,
yeah.
basically.
so
Okay.
it's a whole mess.
Yeah.
I just say Maduro because like that's who they think is the president and like he's like the official one, but it's a whole thing.
Was there a election for his second term? or he just
There's been
Well,
there
so many
was.
elections.
Yeah,
but
there
it
was an
rigged,
election.
or
There's also been referendums. I actually was able to vote in one of them.
Oh wow.
Yeah, I had to go. It was in 2014. No. 2012. Yeah, 2012. They did a referendum. It was worldwide. You had to go to Venezuelan consulate. There's one in New Orleans. So I went with my family, and I got to vote in it. But,
So I don't really understand how, so Maduro is like, his government is like, he's the president, and then there's like another group of politicians
the
and
opposition.
people, the opposition, who are like
The rebels.
also the president, and but how are they, like, are they just guarded by guards, or like why doesn't Maduro just like say, you go away, go to prison, you know what I mean? Because he seems like he is that kind of guy, right?
He has imprisoned many opposition leaders who have like gone against him, who have run against him. He has imprisoned them, or they've had to flee the country. I'm not sure of the logistics of how this current opposition is
this kind of is
working.
like working in the same way with Chavez, right? Like he did the same thing where he was like, no, I'm going to be president, and then went to jail and so on.
It's a mess.
It's really
It's a
interesting.
mess.
It's just a circle.
I just keep up with how my family is doing, mostly because to get into like what is happening, it changes day by day. It's so convoluted, and it's depressing. It's so sad. It is so sad.
It's incredibly sad.
Yeah.
I saw like when you say changing day to day, that was one thing that when I was looking at the inflation rates, it would show like each month of the year. And it would be like, this month it's 1,000,000%, and then this month it's 100%. And I was
which is
like,
why people like the U.S. dollar, and they'll buy and sell things in U.S. dollar because it's stable.
And honestly, a lot of it, in my opinion, can be blamed on Chavez, because that was almost the way he conducted business. Is he would say something one day, and then next week he would say the opposite. Or like
reminds me of Trump, huh?
Yeah, exactly. There's a lot of parallels, and I'm gonna get into something that I think can segue this. But the last thing I was gonna say is, he would, a lot of businesses just fucking, if they weren't going to be nationalized, they were terrified of being nationalized. So instead of companies coming into Venezuela and either giving capital to the government for borrowing or investing in businesses there, they just were too terrified to do that, because they knew that at any moment Chavez could be like, your business is mine now.
Yeah. And same with houses.
Yeah.
Somebody could come into your house, a chavista who like has the support of like the government, could come into your home and say, this is my house now.
Yeah.
So
they did in,
my grandparents' house is still theirs for now.
World War
Somebody
II.
could just walk in and be, hey, this is my house.
Yeah, they did that in the Revolutionary War too. Remember, the redcoats would come in and be like, we're staying here,
So
and you have no choice.
The Third Amendment?
Yep, the Third Amendment. God, it feels good to be an American.
yeah. They can't do that to us yet.
So Miles, you were talking about how it's so confusing about how Maduro is still president.
Yes.
And this
It's
other guy who I
confusing to me, too.
can't
It's confusing too.
pronounce is like self-acclaimed, self-appointed. And how does that work? And was there an election? And to my knowledge, there was an election. The opposition won.
And they didn't recognize the results.
But they didn't recognize the results because Maduro's party said it was all corrupt, and the process of voting was illegitimate. So yes, what I'm segueing into is we are now going into an election, which I am terrified that each party is not going to accept the results because of all the confusion and sowing of doubt in our election process over the last course of a couple months, mainly from Trump. So I can see the same thing being repeated not in a hyperbolic sense, but and not at the same scale. But there is going. I'm terrified of what's going to happen after the election. I think it will have to be just a landslide of victory of either side for us to actually for them to accept the
Yeah.
results.
I can see your fear in that. We have a Supreme Court though.
Yeah.
So the Supreme Court is like, and
Yeah,
I understand.
but-
Yeah, I know what you're gonna say. Like now it's like leaning one way. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or I guess it kind of was before, but
well,
gonna
now
be
we only
even more
have
so.
8 justices. So if there's some sort of dispute, they could be in a tie forever.
Right. Yeah. You're right. I mean, it can happen, but I think it's probably less likely.
Yeah.
I mean, that would completely destroy like our election system if they I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know.
And
We'll see.
It's why it's so confusing when I see other Venezuelans supporting Trump and not seeing
The
like,
parallels.
You
the
you
parallels.
fled a country for certain reasons. Things are happening now that are very similar, but you're supporting this person.
Yeah. Yeah, it blows my mind on so many different levels, and we could have 10 podcasts on that. And one of the things that I think is also really disturbing, not only that Trump has said that he is going to, in quote, look at the results at that time. You know, it's like, what the fuck does that even mean? But the fact that Russia and China are actively trying to sow doubt in our election process, I don't think they're necessarily trying to get one person over the other elected, but rather trying to disrupt democracy.
chaos,
Yeah, and sow doubt into our election process. So when the time comes that Americans are now totally confused and fighting each other because they think that it was corrupt, it was done maliciously.
That's how you bring down a country, and I think
Yeah.
the Middle East is a perfect example of that. Like, just make one side hate the other and
Yeah.
support them, cause chaos.
Yeah, exactly. And, you know, a large part of it is due to the fact that not social media, but these big media outlets are buying into all this and stoking the fires of hate, stoking the fires of, because you are labeled this, you're a terrible person. But if you're labeled this, you're not, you're an ally, and you must conform to our beliefs and do this and do that, or else you're an enemy. I mean, I have people close to me that I feel like think I'm a terrible person because of the way I believe, and you know, I'm never really married to my ideas, but I think that whole process is due to the fact that somebody's telling them how they should feel or how they should think or what they should believe in, and it's really disturbing to me.
Yeah, people will just believe like anything because, and like I think the thing about like recently is the mask, not the mandates, but just like wearing a mask. And that's one of the things that irks me about like what Trump did about like downplaying the virus. He didn't, like, his excuse was to look like our country's strong. I'm a strong leader. We can be confident.
Don't cause panic.
Right. And that totally makes sense. But like he literally just tried to get people not to wear masks and things like that. And I think that there's a difference between like showing that you're strong and influencing people to do the wrong thing. And like people would just follow what he said, even though it made no scientific sense. The CDC was saying something different at some point and then another, and people just believed it. And now it's like,
People
it's
don't
a
believe
hoax.
scientists now.
Right. Now it's a hoax because he made it seem this way, that's what people believe. It's crazy.
I don't understand it.
Yeah.
I think he's a really old guy that is just into himself and wants to win, and does it at any cost. If it's bullying up your opponent or putting down others.
Did you see his, not his, but she was like the person for Pence's, she was like the top COVID person for like the health related stuff, who is like, was a lifelong Republican as well. And she was saying that, like, please vote for Biden because through that whole process, she said that the only thing Trump cared about is how this is going to affect his election.
Yeah.
Like how it's going to look. And
I'm
he
not
didn't
surprised.
have any regard for people's health. And I think it's just crazy that like people are coming out saying that, because that's what we've all thought the whole time. And so now they're proving it.
Yeah, and I don't know if that is an isolated incident. I think I would think or argue that anybody in his position would do the same. I mean, that is the standard politician, right? I tell you a bunch of good shit. I get elected because you bought into that stuff, and then I do everything I can to get reelected and stay in office. And that's why you have these senators who have been in office for like ever. It starts as I'm going to work for you, and then it's I'm going to work for myself, and then it goes back to like I'm going to work for you again.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
It's true. But I think that there's other politicians who can be that way and still do the right thing. And like
100%.
actually care for people.
would love to know that person, and let's put that person in charge.
I think his campaign would be so much stronger if he had actually handled everything correctly.
Right.
Because it's like, oh,
Yeah.
you did a great job. Good for you.
He could have done a better job.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I think he probably just owes a lot of people favors and tries to keep those connections. And so in doing that, it's probably hard for him to do a good job, like do the right thing or do whatever when he owes people.
Yeah, there's something interesting that happens when you get into office and you say you're going to do all these great things, and then you realize it's just a big game, and you can't really get shit done without signing executive orders.
I'm sure he knew it was a game to begin with, though.
Yeah, and he's fairly good at playing it.
Yeah.
I mean, he played all you people.
Yeah.
No offense to people who voted for him. I don't. I respect your decision to vote for him. And I think that's one of the great things about America is that you are allowed to have a difference of opinion of others, and you can't be in prison for having those beliefs.
You know, he did technically build some of the border wall. So to the people who supported that, it is a good thing for them.
One thing people like to talk about is how great Trump's economy was. And one of the things one of the things I saw was the growth percentage under Obama versus Trump, and I think it was 2.3% growth in 2012 or 13 under the Obama administration. 2019's percentage growth was 2.4%. So yeah, it is a little bit better, but it's marginally better. It's not like his economy is. The point I'm trying to make is presidents inherit economies.
Yeah, it's not like he took us from the bottom and brought us up all the way to the top.
But what also pisses me off is that when the economy is doing bad, you spend a lot of money. So you have a high deficit, like right now with COVID. We have a really extremely high, I think the highest it's ever been, deficit because of all the stimulus that they did, because you have to try to like get people money in people's hands, blah, 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 like that whole thing, right? And so he was elected in 2016. So in 2016, the government deficit was, sorry, give me a second here. Yes. The government deficit was $580 billion. In 2017, it was $660 billion. 2018, $779 billion. 2019, $984 billion. 2020, $3.7 trillion. Estimated,
Great.
I think.
Damn. So this is fine.
It boggles my mind how he's like made the economy really well. And the people who support him, which I also believe this, we should reduce our spending to have no deficit, unless we absolutely need to, are saying that he's doing a good job because he's spending so much money, or his administration's spending so much money. It's going to be better if you spend more money. And
who has to pay for all of that back?
Exactly.
Us.
Well,
our children.
Thing is,
our children's
Trump
children.
supporters love to bring up the fact that he donates his presidential paycheck, which is $400,000 a year. Yet he has spent over, I think it's like 270 something times that amount in just golf trips alone.
Yeah. You know, it's also funny when he talks about how like when my campaign runs out of money, I'm going to be the one who's like spending my money for it. Like he hasn't spent a fucking dime and never will on his campaign.
He tweeted
I think it's hilarious.
Once. He tweeted that once. How lucky are you to have me as president?
Really?
Which I thought about that and I was like, that's crazy for somebody that is supposed to be working for me. Like, you work for me, bitch.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, you should be thanking me or whoever voted for you. I didn't vote for him. But, yeah, you should be thanking your supporters, not the other way around. Like, we don't owe you a fucking thing.
He's a public servant.
Mm-hmm.
No, he doesn't think that way, though.
He's a public god.
I was thinking, like,
He's a hero.
If he doesn't get reelected, or if he does get reelected and then the term runs out, whatever, and he tries to run for a third term.
Yeah. If he accepts the results.
Yeah, exactly. His legacy is fucked. Let's be quite honest. And people will be talking for the rest of time of how terrible of a president he was, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. He could have lived the rest of his life just being a businessman.
A terrible person. And then I was like, that must suck to have people talking about you like that for the rest of until you die. And then I was like, you know what? He would actually fucking love that.
He would love it. And you know what else?
People talks about
you
him.
know what else? That is fake news. People saying bad things about him is fake news.
Yeah, obviously.
And he will never believe it.
This whole podcast is fake,
He'll never
by the way.
believe it.
We don't don't exist.
Yeah.
This is all just a sham.
These
mics aren't actually recording anything.
I think honestly think that he wakes up every day and is like, I am doing such a good job, and
Fox loves me. I get
America
good ratings.
is great again.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I don't know.
It's.
You said earlier today that America is in its best state it's ever been, right?
Yeah, I did say
it's
that.
because of Trump, yeah.
It's mostly
Made
because
America
of Trump.
great again.
I just think, despite even COVID happening, and I was freaking out. I thought it was like headed down the worst part of history that humans have ever endured. But obviously, we all need to be reminded of the horrors of the past world wars, including myself. But today is still the best day that America has had, in my opinion. Maybe like pre-COVID was pretty great, but violence is down. All the good shit that us as a society has improved upon. I think a lot of people still have a lot of criticism for certain things. I still think it's the best time to be alive in all of history.
I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have our problems, but we're definitely there's worse places.
There are worse places,
Yeah.
and if you haven't figured it out, we've been drinking. And I have to say, since we do it every podcast, what we're drinking.
True.
Miles and I are drinking some St. Archer Golds, light beer. And then Paula is What are you drinking, Paula?
Was it aviation?
Oh, yes. Yeah, Aviation Gin.
Aviation Gin and Tonic.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. And
Here.
With a lime.
Yes. Served at the Lucky Duck.
There we go. Made
Yeah.
by Chase, the famous bartender.
No, not even close.
That's how you make it.
Is there anything else that you want to say to the people of the world before we wrap this thing up?
No.
No.
Listen to Taylor Swift's new album, Folklore.
Oh yeah, I was gonna.
Stream
We'll
it
have
on
to have you
Spotify.
on again to talk about. I wanted to talk about Taylor Swift. I think it would be interesting, but I also wanted to talk about. I don't know if you know a lot about this, but I think it's like so fascinating. The Britney Spears conspiracies.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
I have a lot of opinions. I also think it's a really interesting discussion on disability and people with disabilities and
Yes.
their rights.
Yep. some of the content she's put out and the people like tying that into the conspiracies is really fascinating. Like on a not an unreasonable, but in a such an unusual, I guess, way, because it's like Britney Spears. But so okay, we'll get into it a little bit before we cut this off because we're still good. We're still good on time. So Britney Spears has had, I guess it's her dad, right? Has legal guardianship over her, so he can have like make a lot of big decisions for her.
I forget the title, but it's a conservatorship.
Yes.
So basically, he has control over. Not right now, because he had to step away for supposedly medical reasons, and I think somebody else is the conservator right now. But basically, he controls her finances, when she can work, when she can leave her house. All of it.
And this has been since like one of her first mental breakdowns.
Yeah,
right?
I think like 2007 was when she had her breakdown. I don't know when the conservatorship was put into place.
Yeah, and so a lot of people are saying that she is like asking for help discreetly because she can't, like, she's afraid that her dad's just going to say you're fucking crazy.
Because she can't post anything on social media without permission from her conservators.
Yes, right. So right now, maybe not right now, but currently she's trying to win back or argue back her own rights and to nullify the legal guardianship from her dad. I'm curious. I don't know how far into that she is, but
I know they had some sort of they had a court date a week or two ago. I don't know the outcomes or if there's a follow-up
recent
one.
News.
Yeah. So as far as her asking for help discreetly through Instagram, through cryptic posts, I don't know about that.
Yeah.
I think she has maybe posted things in the past that alluded to her struggles. But she is asking for her father to be removed as a conservator. I think she wants to have her manager be conservator and her sister be in charge of the finances, as far as a trust that was set up for her children. Because right now her father has control of everything, but her ex-husband has a restraining order against her father where he cannot have contact with her children. So the fact that the court saw it okay to put in a restraining order protecting her children from her father, yet she has control over her. That's troubling.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, that's crazy. That's so intertwined. I mean, yeah, you're going to need a legal team to battle that out for sure.
Is he a bad guy? I mean, what's the restraining order there for?
I think assault. I think it was like assault on one of the children.
Interesting.
Oh wow.
Yeah, one of her sons.
Wow.
So it's troubling, and it's from what I've heard is she does want the conservatorship in place because she feels it protects her from people trying to take advantage.
Yeah.
So that's good. She's just like, I don't want my father involved.
Yeah, right. She needs somebody who she can trust, and she no longer feels like she can trust her father.
But it's hard because when you're under a conservatorship as like the person who's being guarded, you can't even hire your own lawyer without permission. So for her to fight,
that sounds like a really bad thing.
So for her to fight, her father on this in court is really, really difficult because how is she supposed to do that without a lawyer?
Yeah.
She can't do anything. She can't spend a dime without his permission. I mean, supposedly is like you can, how is somebody going to track every single dime you spend? But legally, if she did, she could be put into a mental institution against her will.
Right.
For doing something like hiring a lawyer.
I remember I read, I think it was like last year or the year before her residency in Vegas, she stopped or canceled or whatever.
Yeah.
She ended it early. I think she was supposed to add another leg of shows.
Yeah. She was going to add another leg and it got canceled, and she went into some sort of treatment facility. But then it was weird. It was apparently her dad had a medical crisis or something, and then
that's what I read.
Yeah, she said we just need time. So it's and because it's all like protected under this legal stuff,
it's very
really
similar.
hard to know what's going on. But she's been working since then, and it's like how are you going to say that she needs all of these protections but you're still going to make her work?
Yeah.
It's kind of similar to a situation where you get put in or you check yourself into a mental institution and then they won't let you leave because you trying to convince them that you're not crazy is hard when they think you're crazy, right? So Britney is kind of like, it's one of the things I saw, like a video on TikTok. It was like hers, like, "Hey guys, I'm just working out. Can't work out in my gym because I burned it down."
Yeah.
And it was like,
Her gym caught on fire.
So
like,
normal to her.
What? Like,
Yeah.
why did your gym burn down? Like, that's not a like your kitchen's supposed to burn down because there's a stove there. But how is your gym, like, did your Peloton bike like burn down?
I'm thinking it's probably something electrical. And then she broke her foot a week later dancing in her living room. It was weird.
Yeah, it was weird.
Yeah.
I feel bad for her.
Yeah,
I,
so
thi-
do
Yeah,
I.
no,
I think a
for
lot of
sure.
people were
Terrible.
like really
Terrible.
mean.
Yeah.
And
Like
she-
said a
and-
lot of mean things about
And
her.
she went through something so personal in such a public way.
Yeah.
And that definitely did not help.
And she also got super hyper famous at like 18. And
Yeah.
that
So
just
she,
isn't
I think
great.
she's definitely been taken advantage of for a real, like from a young age. So that's probably why she wants that in place. But from what it sounds like, her dad should not be involved.
Yeah.
And I have seen some disabled people talk about this, and it's like, conservatorship can be a really helpful thing because if you have memory problems, either due to your medical conditions or medications or whatever it is,
Right.
you might accidentally like spend money that you meant to not spend because you forgot.
Yeah.
It's
I
like,
forgot I already bought a Lambo.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So it can be a really good thing when it's in place with somebody who you trust,
Yeah.
who has your best interest in.
It's also hard to speculate because like when that first went down, then she like came out with some albums right after, and it was like, why is she working? And it's, I mean, maybe it's better that she's working because it's
Yeah.
better for her, like to not keep distracted. Maybe it's not, and they're just using her. I don't know.
Yeah, it's really hard, and it seems she wants to keep it private as well. So it's tough, and
Sorry, you can't be Britney Spears and have
I
your life
know.
be private. That shot out the window when you wrote "Baby Hit Me One More Time." Like,
Yeah, what is
Yeah.
she thinking?
I don't know.
Crazy.
But we'll have to check back in with Britney and also get the scoop on T Swift on the next episode when we have you back.
Maybe get
on.
into Kanye a little bit.
Yeah.
oh, I have a lot of thoughts on that, especially with what's going on right now.
Yeah. We'll have to hash it out next time. But thank you so much for being
Thanks
on.
for having
thank
me.
This was great. We'll have to do it again, like I said. And thank you for all our listeners, every single one of you, the 2 people that listen to this.
Thanks, Mom.
Thanks so much. We'll be back on soon with the next guest. Until then, stay sweet.